So, let's start with something fairly simple to wrap our brains around. I often think of this as the starter kit. So if you've been in one of my classes where I talk about promos before, you may have heard me reference the starter kit. What does that mean? Well, this starter kit is going to help you to cut promotional messages, promos, that attract fans to you, to your brand. So what must be included in a promo that is composed in this way? Well, some obvious things that you may have heard before. For example, you need to say your name 3 times. 3 times is the ideal number to say your name in a promo of this style and type. You need to cement that as much as possible in the mind of the viewer or the listener. Saying it just once at the top is not enough. You may know, years ago a study was done that said people do not remember any kind of marketing message until they have seen it at least 9 times. So you might pass a billboard one day, you pass it on day 2, you pass it on day 3, but it isn't until day 9 on average that that marketing message actually starts to creep into your consciousness. Why is this? Well, it's part of our survival mechanism as human beings. The rational part of our brain learns how to tune out marketing messages. We're exposed to thousands of marketing messages every day. It's not just billboards, it's advertisements, it's pop-up ads. Advertisements and marketing messages have all kinds of ways of finding a method of intruding upon our lives. And because our attention is valuable and our attention is finite, the rational mechanisms in our brain learn how to tune out marketing messages. And unfortunately, that's exactly what a promo is. It's a promotional message. You're promoting a sale. So we have to overcome that. We have to overcome the rational brain's need as a survival instinct to make sure we only focus on the things which are important. And billboards, they're not important to our survival. Pop-up ads, those are not important to our survival. So our brain learns the skill of tuning those out. Anything we can do to overcome that hurdle, we must. And one way that you can do that is to try and say your name at least 3 times in every promo. What you tend to find is, once you've gone past 3, it starts to feel like overkill. So you might have heard what I said a moment ago and thought, well, shouldn't I try and say my name 9 times? Well, while I certainly see the merit in that, unfortunately, after 3, you're going to find it plays like overkill. And people, they tune out immediately. So, as you're building the kind of promo that might start to attract fans to your personal brand, do your best to say your name 3 times. And then make sure to name your opponent. Who is opposite you in the conflict? Name your opponent. After you've done that, it's important to remember things like the when. When does this take place? When I meet you in the ring this Saturday. When I meet you inside the squared circle on May the 4th. When I finally get to Tokyo, Japan on September 10th, I'm going to face you there. Then, great. And make sure, if at all possible, to mention a venue or a location. I know these things sound obvious up front, right? You got to tell people who is involved in the conflict. When does the conflict take place? And where does the conflict take place? And to build out on that concept of the where, you may choose to include the method for viewing. This is how you watch it. You got to come see it live. Buy your tickets now. Great. That tells me the where. Where is the method of seeing this? Do I have to watch a live stream? That's important information. Can I watch it next Monday night on Raw? That's important information for me to know. What is the method for watching the match that you're talking about, that you're getting me excited for? And these things, the who and the when and the where, and even the how is the methodology, I suppose you could say. All of these things are critical when you're just starting out trying to cut effective promos. But there is an essential piece to this equation that we do not talk about enough, and I want to lavish some time and attention on it right now. And that is the why. Why is this conflict happening? Why are you in a wrestling match? I have a graphic that is meant to accompany this. I don't know that we are able to share it with you at this moment. I'm about to find out.
No.
We are not. but I will describe it to you. We'll fix it in post. I don't know. But this is a fine time to call upon the brilliant work of Simon Sinek, marketing consultant and leadership guru Simon Sinek, and a work of his that is 10 years old called Start With Why. In it, he diagrams what has come to be known as the golden circle. The outer layer of the circle is what, and that middle layer is how. But in the bullseye is why. Why are we in this conflict? Why are you, wrestler A, opposing wrestler B? In most promotional messages that fall short of compelling the audience to care, we often spend too much time on the what and the how. And those are just part of the process. They explain or justify the most important part, the why. The why speaks to your purpose, not to process, but to purpose. And your purpose has to be clearly outlined if you expect fans to care. Why? So as Simon Sinek says quite famously, start with why. Marketing messages that are assembled from the broadest point of view, which is what, and works inward through the golden circle to the bullseye of why, are less compelling than when we have promos that are structured in reverse. They move from the bullseye out to the outer edge of the golden circle. So, let's make up an example now, a practical example, to help us understand how this might work. So, first, I'm going to just off the cuff construct a little bit of a promo that is assembled from the broadest idea, the what, the outer layer of the golden circle, that works its way inward toward the bullseye, why, the center of the golden circle. So, for me, the what, if I have to define what I am to the audience as a professional wrestler, I would call on my differentiating value proposition. I would say, I'm the master of 1,000 holds, Mike Quackenbush. This is easily understood. And virtually every professional wrestler in one way, shape, or form understands their what. What are you as a professional wrestler? You may not call it your DVP. You might call it your log line. You might have another name that you refer to it by. But chances are, you know that one sentence description that makes you unique and adds value to what you do. No matter what you call it, that is your differentiating value proposition. So if I was going to start from the broadest topic, what, then talk about how, and then lastly talk about why, my promo might be structured like this. I'll start by identifying my what. I'm Mike Quackenbush. I am the master of 1,000 holds. Then I need to define the how. So let's say, for the purpose of this, I am going into a match against Zack Sabre Jr. So how am I going to overcome Zack Sabre Jr.? Well, if I'm going to detail that part in my promo, I might say, no matter which way you twist me up, no matter which way you tie me in knots, no matter which way you manipulate all of my joints, I'm not going to give up. And then lastly, I'll name my why. Why is this? Because I cannot appear to be a failure. My father will be there watching. I can't have that. I can't prove him right. He always said, when things got really tough for me, I folded. And I've got to prove him wrong. So here I've outlined my what. I am the master of 1,000 holds. That's what I am as a professional wrestler. And how. The how I'm going to beat Zack Sabre Jr. is, well, no matter in which way he ties me up in knots or twists me up or manipulates my joints, I'm not going to give up the match. And why am I doing it? Because I've got to prove my father wrong. He said when the going gets tough, I fold. So let's take this same promo now, same content, but we're going to assemble it in reverse. We're going to work our way out of the golden circle, starting at the bullseye of why. Then we'll talk about how. Only last are we going to talk about the what. Okay? I'm not changing the content, I'm changing the order of delivery. So let's talk about my why. When I wrestle you, Zack Sabre Jr., next Saturday at Kurikan Hall, my father will be there. It is only the third time in 26 years of wrestling my father has actually attended one of my matches in person, and I have to prove him wrong. All throughout my teenage years, it didn't matter what I was involved in, my father would say the same thing to me. He said, Mike, every time things get tough, you know what you do? You fold. And that's why you're never going to amount to anything in life. And then he'd march up the steps to his room and slam the door. I heard that more times out of my father than anything else. Lines of support, affirmation, encouragement. I don't think you know how it worked in my house. In my house, my father had already made up his mind. He said I would never amount to anything. When you and I lock up in that ring, Zack Sabre Jr., it doesn't matter to me how you're going to twist my bones, rip away at my muscles, manipulate my joints. The knots that you're going to tie me in, I will not give up. I won't give you the satisfaction. I won't tap out. I will not say I quit. I won't say it to you, and I'm not going to say it to my father in the front row either. I'm Mike Quackenbush. I'm the master of 1,000 holds, and I'll see you in Currican Hall, Zach. So effectively what I did there was reverse the order of information. I talked about my why, right? My father said I would never amount to anything. I must prove him wrong. Then I talked about the how, right? You're going to break my bones, twist me into knots, etc. And then last but not least, I used my what. What am I as a wrestler? I'm the master of 1,000 holds. By reversing the order in which I deploy the information, I create a much more compelling promo. Why? Because I started with my why. I didn't talk about my process. I talked about my purpose. What is my reason for wrestling? What do I believe? By telling that to the audience, I am inviting them to share in that part of the experience with me. And this also speaks to the part of the brain that is responsible for behavior and also aids in the formation of long-term memory, meaning, is your promo memorable or not? That's what the limbic system in our brain does. It speaks to behavior. And when we're talking about the parts and the processes in the brain that are compelled by emotion, keep in mind, I'm going to refer to that as the irrational part of the brain. So the rational part of our brain is great at processing things like facts, numbers, figures, features. That's what the rational part of our brain does. But our irrational brain deals with feeling and belief. So it deals with fuzzier intangibles. But that is exactly what the why, your purpose, your reason, your belief speaks to. The limbic system in your brain. It is the limbic system that makes people feel things. And it is also what aids in the formation of long-term memory. So if you happen to skip over the why and you lavish too much time on the what and the how, you aren't speaking to the part of the human brain that compels behavior or forms memory. So, if you want people to feel something when you're done speaking, and you want them to remember what you said, important things like your name, you need to make sure that you gear some of your verbiage, some of your rhetoric, that is to say, your persuasive speech, to address the limbic system in the brain. The rational part of the brain, I once heard this described by a psychologist, so I'm going to just paraphrase his analogy. This psychologist said that the rational part of the brain is like a zookeeper. Just imagine a zookeeper. The irrational part of the brain is like 4 angry elephants. The rational part of the brain, no matter how many facts, features, no matter how much logic it is presented with, will always fail to override those 4 elephants. Because that irrational part of the brain is so powerful, it's why emotion can override logic. And I bet we can all think of at least one example from our own lives where, of course, that's been exactly true. Our emotional response overrode what we knew to be logically correct, and we were powerless to stop it. We all are as human beings because of the processes in the brain. Our rational brain is only as big as one zookeeper. What chance does that zookeeper have against 4 elephants? But this is also why it is so important to make sure we address those 4 elephants. It is not enough to just talk to the zookeeper, the rational part of the brain in this example. We have to make sure that we are addressing the limbic system in the brain as well. The part that speaks to behavior, emotion, and is responsible for aiding in the formation of long-term memory.